Well, it's really been great because Sandra set up some of the key themes and the 7 major kind of components of success in this sort of new AI-enabled world. And she highlighted 2 things in particular I'm going to talk a little bit about today. The first, we've covered a little bit, the strategy piece, which Anupam really hit on the nail, was kind of critical to understanding how consultants can help you. But another point, which I think is underemphasized all too often, is the role of infrastructure. And that's really what I want to talk about today, understanding how infrastructure can change the game and, frankly, get over many of the basic factors that get in the way of making AI a success in your organizations. So with that, I just want to start the question between the 3 of us. And I'll start maybe with Tejaswini. One of the key themes that I think we've seen is that AI in general, and Gen AI in particular, is changing the nature of workloads that every company across the world has to face in terms of what they need from their cloud providers, their data centers and the like. Can you tell us just how is that working out?
Yeah, absolutely. Does this work? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's working.
First of all, really nice to see such a full room. Thank you everyone for being here. By way of quick introduction, so I'm Tejaswini and I head up marketing for APAC at Digital Realty. We're one of the world's largest data center platforms. And I wanted to introduce myself before answering your question, which is we have a pretty integral role to play in AI evolution. And one of the things I'll share with you, we did a recent survey, and I'll touch on that a few times during this conversation. It was really interesting. We had over 2,000 respondents worldwide, over 600 in APAC. And one of the themes that came out was just the level of AI optimism that we are seeing across the board. About 67% of respondents in APAC said that they are already executing a formal AI strategy, which I must say I found quite surprising and interesting given how early we are in the journey. But that said, from our point of view, as we serve different types of IT workloads, we are certainly seeing some evolution on workloads as it relates to AI. In general, the power density requirements is on the rise. We normally now see 20, 30 kilowatts a rack coming through quite as a commonplace requirement. But when it comes to AI, we are already talking of the order of 70 kilowatts or even more. With Blackwell, you're looking at north of 100 kilowatts. That's very that's very power intensive and really needs specialized solutions to solve for that. In parallel to that, we also see things like larger footprint requirements, contiguous space, because everyone wants to process within short proximate distances. But even though it's early stages, we do see clients already thinking about regulation, compliance, and sustainability. So all of that is happening even at this very early stage.
So you've really pointed out that the demand is changing as a result of AI for infrastructure,
Definitely.
data centers
Yeah.
from across
Yeah.
the board. Jackie, I just want to turn to you. What's your sense of how network infrastructure itself is sort of changing in response to that changing demand?
Well, good morning, everyone. Just a little bit of background of
Please.
my company. So Console Connect used to be, everybody would know better, under PCCW Global. So we run a network as a service platform, which since 2017, we've interconnected over 1,000 data center and over 250 cloud and RAM. Now, having said that, we are actually seeing the workload are being moved in a way that our traditional architect couldn't actually sustain, even for ourselves. So, with the Gen AI and, in general, in AI in general, we're seeing a lot of requirement, actually, from our businesses that require a more scalable, where they can start moving their traffic whenever they want and however they need. I think that's the key. I think a lot of businesses in Asia, they have to reassess, how their network topology is set up right now. That's one. The other thing we are seeing is cost. So again, back maybe 10 years ago, you don't see a lot of cost issue with using the cloud or even putting your application on cloud. But with Gen AI and AI in general, when you start moving a lot of data, like petabytes plus, I guess, obviously the data moving in the cloud, there is an issue. But when you start getting the data out, you will see a lot of egress charges. We're talking about like 5 or 6 figures. So I think cost is something that a lot of businesses have to look into. And the last but not least, obviously, is the security side. So we're talking about, could be data sovereignty, data governance, and as simple as, about, is your data being moved in a secure manner?
So one of the themes that you bring up there, which I want to sort of pick up on, is obviously virtually most of the organizations in this room are in a sort of hybrid cloud, multi-cloud kind of environment. And very often they're moving a lot of data around. And it's challenging, especially in a Gen AI context, because the data is coming from many, many different locations. So what advice would you give to companies thinking about, how do you seamlessly monitor, maintain, efficiently manage the data movement across all of these different potential data sources for AI? I mean, Tejaswini, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I will, and I'll probably also build maybe a little bit on what Jacky just said. So firstly, when it comes to data, one of the things we've, again, as part of this survey that I was referring to, some of these data and infrastructure challenges came through loud and clear. So the respondents told us that the challenges they see in APAC include not having sufficient access to data sources, because historically the amount of data that people were dealing with and the way they needed to organize it was very different. They are concerned about the amount of power that's going to be needed to really power AI workloads. And they're also concerned about how do you get access to data, to distributed sources of data, because AI is not a singular model, right? You've really got to triangulate across different data sources. So these are real challenges that companies are dealing with. And when it comes to Console Connect and Digital Realty, one of the reasons we are sitting here together is because we believe that together we can enable that very seamless kind of experience. The way we've sort of collaborated, it's almost like a Console Connect client is a seamless part of the Digital Realty platform and vice versa. What that does, I mean, maybe I'll pick on an example, and Jacky, if you'd want to expand on that. But a web hosting provider out of Indonesia, for example, they needed to distribute their sources of data access. They wanted to reduce network latency significantly. And through this collaboration, we were really able to give them access to wherever they needed to be, connect to whoever they needed to connect to, reducing the network cost by, I think, a good 30% or so. They went from a manual provisioning to an automated provisioning, which has connectivity between our portals kind of thing. So that took down their provisioning time. Like we say 99%, but essentially it's from manual to automated. So that's some of the advantages. Anything you'd like to add there, Jacky?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I think one of the key on nowadays between connectivity provider, data center provider, application provider is where we have been working very closely with integrating between the partners. Now, I guess back in the old days, like 10 years ago, businesses would go into for a single service, and then you contact your incumbent, and then you just basically tell them what you need. But I think what we've been seeing for the last at least 3 years is everybody's building ecosystem. They're building their own platform, and whereas I think one of the key we've learned, we're still learning as a platform service provider, that you just have to continue to talk to your partners, talk to your service provider, because we need to understand a little bit more, because everybody's learning how we should build the AI and all that, but everybody needs to collaborate together, and by working together, whereas it will be more, I guess, efficient in the way we can handle these kind of Gen AI and AI projects.
I think that point you bring up there, Jacky, is key, and it sort of echoes what Sandra and Anupam said. You need to have partners that can help you across these different myriad bits and pieces. Nobody's got all the answers, I think it's fair to say.
Can I add
Please.
one more point to that, which is, so the way we think of it is we are like in the first minute of the AI journey, literally, right? There's so much ahead of us. It's the unknown. So the way we like to think about it, and the way we work with our clients is really think about how can you future-proof for all of the changes that might come up in the future, because we could have new innovation, new technology partners, new locations that could have house the innovative technology you want to access. So we believe that, at least from our point of view, for an infrastructure level, because everything else is constructed on top of your infrastructure, you got to get the infrastructure piece right. And so we think that having an open, global, connected platform is the key here. And that's really what our role is, either by ourselves or with partners like Console, is to really unleash that kind of a global, open, connected platform over which you can really architect we call it your digital infrastructure foundations. So essentially you're solving for network, security, compute, data. It sounds very basic, but when you solve for that, thinking of the scale ahead, and the regulation, the ethics around AI, etc., then you're really creating a data and AI-ready infrastructure. So that's really what we are in the business of.
That's fascinating. You bring up a point there which I want to drill down a little bit. You mentioned the idea of future-proofing your infrastructure, essentially, to support your longer-term AI journey. And that sounds great, but everybody knows that, the Blackwells of this world and the infrastructure, they swallow a lot of power. They swallow a lot of energy, water cooling, all the rest of it are real challenges from a sustainability perspective, which you might argue is really the key to any of us having a long-term future. How would you argue, say the average data center manager or the average CEO should think about balancing the sustainability challenge, which even though maybe it's gone down a little bit the last year or so, but I think it's going to come back up as a real concern. How would they do that?
Yeah, I think the sustainability challenge is here to stay, right? There's no getting around it. The way we think of it, operating one of the largest platforms of data, like we have data centers, over 300 data centers around the world in over 25 different countries. So we've put a lot of thought leadership and investment behind it. But the way we really approach it is that you've got to bake in sustainable practices end to end. It's really like soup to nuts, from your design to your operations to the rest of it, all your financial sort of sources of capital for your data center is really to think end to end. And I might touch on a few examples, if that's okay, which are APAC specific. So one of the examples we have is really to, for example, in Singapore, we've implemented a DCI electrolysis solution. Now, I won't get into the technology because I'm not the right person either, but to boil that down, what that has done is that reduces the amount of mineral buildup, because you've got to have liquid or water sort of running through your data center. It reduces the mineral buildup, and so you can use the water more number of times. So instead of reusing it 9 times, we are now able to reuse it 33 times. Therefore, on a monthly basis, we are able to save like 650,000 liters of water a month, which is significant. So imagine if you can scale that. Secondly, investing in liquid cooling technologies, because we do need to power larger and larger density compute. So we've made significant investments in what we call as air-assisted liquid cooling or direct chip liquid cooling. Again, forget the technology, but essentially what it does is, through a combination of those factors, you can go from what historically would be, say, 5 to 6 kilowatt a rack, you could go up to 150 kilowatts a rack, which is significant. So there's a lot of similar innovations that we are trying to do across the platform.
That's great. We're starting to come to the end, so I want to sort of wrap it up and sort of focus our attention on the future, really, if you like. One of IDC's predictions is that in the matter of, by 2027, something like, half of organizations in the region are going to be using, are going to be ready to use a Gen AI platform and use enterprise data to support that platform. But they're going to actually use it to support, they're going to be looking for improved data storage, data standardization, better data observability, improved, more efficient data movement. What advice would both of you give to any of the organizations in this room, thinking about how the devil do we actually really future-proof our AI investments, given that we're all operating in this sort of multi-cloud hybrid platform that, that we face right now? What advice would you give? Jacky?
Okay. I think the first advice I would give is I think most of the organizations start really looking into what is available in the market. Now, the reason I said that is, I know especially on larger organizations, they are very used to what they have been using. So I think the first thing they got to start doing new researches, who's doing what in their specific market. Secondly, this is actually a real case. So a lot of people start moving their data into all these AI model, especially on the public cloud. Now we know that there are cloud regions in Asia, so especially a lot of people are putting their AI in Singapore and probably in Tokyo. But if you're businesses that are not inside these two cities, and you have to really look into your data governance or any policy or regulation in your specific vertical. For instance, if you're an FSI, if your country do not allow you to get your data out, even though that your cloud zone may be in the same country as they quoted, you really have to study where the actual AI machine is actually located. So we have customer, they were getting the AI setup, let's say in Hong Kong, but they actually find out all the data actually going to Tokyo, which kind of violate what they're supposed to do. So that's the other thing. And I guess the last thing I would suggest is look for anything that can scalable, and look into API. There are a lot of platform service provider have the API open already. Even though for most of the enterprises are still fairly new into integrating their own platform to a service provider. But I think the trend you will start seeing in the next 3-5 years, there will be a lot of enterprises accessing directly into different service provider platform using via API. That's very important.
Interesting. Tejaswini.
Yeah, I think I'll just sort of round this out by saying what I said earlier, which is we really think partnering with open global connected platforms is going to be the key here, because as IT leaders, the things you're all going to solve, you're going to need to solve for will be latency, risk, compliance, scale, sustainability, complexity, all of this is rather complex. And so the more you partner with I won't call us vendors, we really think of us as partners, but we can bring you a lot of subject matter expertise, because we are talking to clients both here as well as around the world, and we benefit a lot from that vantage point. So we can be part of your AI evolution and help you to future-proof, which is really what I'm sure everyone is looking for.
I think that's great insights. I mean, I would just add to it that I think that you both have really emphasized this need for openness, open platforms, for example, ecosystem, managing the ecosystem, realizing that no single partner has all the answers. There's no right technology or wrong technology in one sense. It's always about horses for courses, figuring out what's going to help you in your business journey for AI moving forward. With that, thank you so much. Thank you, Tejaswini. Thank you, Jacky.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening.